Hi everyone. We're going to talk about the evolution of communication because sometimes you don't realize that communication evolves. There's a lot to it, so I'm going to look into that. Well, before we do, don't take notes. You can if you want to, obviously. But this will be available on this link, and this will be available on the beginning of the presentation and also at the end. So please take your time to really absorb a lot of the content that you're about to receive. Some things you might really want to focus on. All right, so the destiny of communication. So there's three aspects that not a lot of people really realize. It continuously evolves. You start off with something and it continuously changes. And it's very addictive. We kind of need to have communication. Otherwise, often we'll die. We rely on each other for our social systems, and even just for something in case like there's an earthquake, we have all these alert systems. We must communicate, and so that's why it's very addictive. And it's very limited. Regardless of how we talk to one another, there's always going to be a limitation. So I want to look at these three things, but I also want to point out that there's one person that really understood those three things before he created product. That was Mark Zuckerberg, right? He created Facebook. His limitation was text, but what he did that was so different is that he realized that people accepted text. So by accepting that limitation, he was able to create Facebook, understanding the scope of usage that it will have. And as you all know, and I'm sure are all users of, Facebook is widely used all across the world, most of the world. Okay, so I want to look at evolving communication. I don't know if you're aware of this, but as babies, you all had skills that disappeared over time. One of the most interesting ones I found was that as soon as you're born, up until about 3 months, a baby can take a look at a photograph of a parent's face, a mother or father. You can actually rip up a photograph and place maybe the lips of the mother on the forehead. The eyes can be on the chin, on the cheeks. It doesn't really matter. What happens is the baby will automatically recognize the mother's face or the father's face, regardless of its form. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Why would a baby have this skill? And it must be evolution, because it has a skill and it's born with it. But it disappears after 3 months. Why? I don't know, but we have it. And what other skills we have that are innate, that we have lost? I'm not sure, but it's an interesting one. And I want to look at body language. Regardless of anyone, any living thing in the animal kingdom, we all have one common denominator when we communicate, and it's body language. It's the most meaningful form of communication. So we have to keep that in mind as well. When we're texting, we don't have body language. We don't have, when we're using text, we don't even have sound. We don't have smell. We're missing a lot of senses. But with body language, when you're there next to an animal or another person, you can sense a lot of things. And so we have to know that that's like the basis. That's like the most important kind of communication you could receive from someone. So, I had to. So the reason, now that we're texting so much, a lot of people prefer text. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't actually like to talk on the phone very often. Often people who call me are salespeople, and I'm not that interested most of the time. So I prefer to text. It's much easier. And if I'm going to get together with somebody, it's going to be in person. I know a lot of people don't like that. And actually, that's why emoticons and GIFs as well, or GIFs, were created, so that we can actually go ahead and give emotion to our text. And give like a very one-dimensional thing like text, some feeling, some more emotion. So it's more meaningful. Now, we all require communication to live, but is it addictive? It depends on the kind of connection you can make. It's kind of interesting with this particular connection when we're just doing something where it's very one-dimensional, or maybe even I would say two-dimensional because you also have video, you don't get a full connection. You know, right now, me talking to you can never be replaced by a video that you're going to be looking at online. It can never be replaced by a message you might receive from me. It's not, we can't possibly do that. The only next level up is if we're sitting down and talking to one another, so I can get a discourse. That's a meaningful connection. But when you remove that, you have a different kind of connection. And we have to wonder, does that leave us feeling a little empty? Sometimes that's the case. So we have to look at that as well. A lot of times, addiction stems from social connection. You need to have social connection. And this may be a solution for social connection, talking with people on social media, but it can't be a full solution. You have to have a fuller life, because that connection will always be, it will never be full. It will never be as though we're going to lunch somewhere, but it will be a connection. So quantity or quality. It's for some people to decide. So the emotional appeal of virtual reality is that the connection is deeper than something, say, from your phone, because you're actually in it. You're experiencing different senses. So we all have our senses, and the more senses that can be appealed to at once, the more important and deep the connection will be. So you'll get meaningful experiences, and you'll feel like you have more of a connection to whatever it is that you're doing. Maybe you're doing it with someone, maybe you're not. Maybe it's with artificial intelligence, but we'll look at that in just a minute. We have to understand that this is going to be VR, virtual reality, or even augmented reality, is going to be meaning more to you when you use these services than something like your phone. It's going to add a different dimension, and it's going to engage different senses. So this is excellent for marketers. We have to keep in mind, however, that there are limitations. And I'm not talking about job loss, but I'm going to look at specific limitations. So text and text limitations, it's very one-dimensional. You can't really tell if somebody is cynical or not, or is joking around. It's flat. That's why we have emoticons and GIFs, as I mentioned. The cost. Cost does play into the limitations. An Amazon Alexa of this particular size is about $150. A Vive, which is excellent, is about $700. An Oculus goes for about $500 now. Google is doing an excellent job. Cardboard costs $10. If you don't have it yet, I strongly urge you to go buy one so you can explore with it. Eye contact. So this is really interesting. The reason why Google Glass failed, in my opinion, is because we didn't have social connection when we were wearing a Google Glass. When we had it, it was completely broken. People were looking up into the corner of their glasses instead of the person in front of them. And it would insult the person in front of them because you weren't making connection. So rather than enabling connection and using AI in a different kind of way, what it did really is it broke the social connection. And that was detrimental to the success of Google Glass. As we all know, it's discontinued. And there are different ways to maybe get around that, but it doesn't exist right now. A lot of times right now, in my circles, people are talking about streaming eyes, video, from the inside of virtual reality glasses on the outside, so you can maybe have eye contact with the person in front of you. Problem with that is you have to really make sure that you have exact timing. And then, of course, there's nausea. I mean, this is like our most reaction. If latency is off, if what you see and what you feel is different, you're going to be so nauseated, a lot of people may throw up. And that was initially the biggest issue for virtual reality, which is now no longer the issue. We're down to 20 milliseconds in latency, which is excellent. Meaning you won't throw up when you use it. And then there's conversational anomalies. So when I look at AI, and if you want afterwards, we can play with AI. I brought one with me. So just come over to me afterwards and we can play with it. When you're asking a question, sometimes they don't understand the answer, and so you realize, oh, I'm just talking to a robot. I'm not talking to a human, and therefore it doesn't give you, of course, the same kind of meaning as when you're talking to a person. And then multiple senses. The more senses that can be engaged with, the more meaningful the connection you'll have with whatever it is you're doing, or whoever you're with. But a lot of times you don't have that. On text, you have just a cognitive sense. It's visual. But at least with VR, you have tactile sensation, so your feeling is engaged, visual, and with most headsets also audio, which is why it will be feeling more real. So why is VR really hot in marketing and extremely forgivable? It's forgivable because it's new, but why it's really hot in marketing is because it has a lot of potential. I mean, look at the numbers. It's expected to reach $80 billion by 2025. Like, that's pretty impressive. It's versatile, it's impactful, and very memorable. Any game that you play or anything that you do in VR, you'll remember it, and you might be very much tempted to go back. Okay, so this is a really cool movie. I want to bring it back to these skills that we have that's innate, like baby skills. This is a study that was done at Stanford, and what they're looking at here. Would somebody like to press play?
Use this. What?
What they're looking at here is how somebody would react with a third arm. We have 2 arms, awesome. Can we have a third? I don't know. Why not? So what happened was Stanford started to see, would people understand how to control a third arm if they had access to one? Turns out that most people were able to learn how to control this third arm protruding out of your chest with your head in about 3 minutes. And that was across the board. They also experimented with a tail, and humans were able to figure out how to control a tail within about 4.5 minutes. It took a little longer, but we were able to learn how to control it so quickly without any instruction, which goes to show us maybe we have other skill sets that we lost as we aged. So it's interesting to see that. We don't have to watch the whole movie, I just wanted you to see the actual study. August. Yeah, so how do I do that?
Okay.
Do you want to go to the next slide for me, please?
Okay.
That would be good. The next arrow would be. Cool.
Yes.
Okay, so watch it. Okay, that's awesome. Thank you. There's one more video just to forward you later. This is new. This was developed about a month ago. And it's a Swedish company, if I'm not mistaken. I actually just spent about $800 on a new monitor because when I code, I like to look at a large monitor, otherwise my eyes will burn. And this guy created a VR desktop. It's a one-man operation. He beat Apple. He beat Oculus. And he actually was able to create this app, VR Desktop. So you can actually work out of your Oculus and a screen as large as you want, regardless of where you're at. You don't have to invest in a desk. You don't need to invest in a chair, nothing, no screens. You just sit in your goggles, and just to be like very real with you, you may not want to sit in your goggles for more than 2 hours. You'll get a little tired right now, but that is expected to change by at least September. Q3 is what everybody's predicting. But here you are with the ability to work off of your right out of your goggles, right after your eye equipment, whatever gear it is that you're using. So it's kind of interesting to see that he was able to create that. I thought that was ingenious. One man to beat out Facebook and Apple. I thought that was pretty impressive. Oculus, to be more precise. Hang on, there's a movie I really want you to see that I think will bother you. Which is why I put it in.
Yes.
Let me see, maybe conclusion is just not in the correct location.
Oh, there it is.
All right. So, wait, prior to watching it, it's okay if it's running. I just want you to all keep a really open mind when you're looking at this. This is, oh cool, just paused it. Good, I get to give a small intro. This is an AI, an artificial intelligence product by Gatebox, which is a Japanese company. And we have to keep in mind that in Japan, sometimes it's very difficult for Japanese businessmen to find mates. And so a lot of times they're lonely, a lot of times there's a very high suicide rate. And it's interesting that they create a solution, this company Gatebox created a solution to help cope with that loneliness. So let's take a look at this movie that we're keeping a very open mind.
朝ですよ。起きてください。ねえ、起きてってば。おはよう。
おはよう。
あ、今日雨が降るかもしれないから傘持って行って。急がないと遅刻しちゃうよ。
行ってきます。
いってらっしゃい。気をつけてね。
I know, right? I know. It's not for me, but I know. Are you fucking real? I know.
なんかさ、家で誰かが待ってるっていいもんだな。さっき思ったんだ。帰ってくるとき。
I know. It's just wrong. But, you know, if you're lying,
おやすみなさい。
or a lie. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's very unbelievable, I know. It's going to take a moment to digest something like that. I'm aware. But let's look at the uses for that before we prejudge. Maybe, I don't know about you guys, but I know plenty of elderly people who are lonely. You know, before my grandfather passed, when we had conversations, he was so lonely, he would go through the entire conversation just telling me everything that he ate. He wanted to communicate with someone. And while I couldn't always be there for him, it might be really cool to have an AI available to have a conversation with him. It would never be a full-on connection, but it might be able to help with loneliness, or maybe children. In fact, that's also something I want to bring up, something kind of interesting. Let me just... Let me go to the next thing again. I want to just go to the conclusion if I go to that slide, please. So, I was in the car the other day with my son. I have an 8-year-old son. And he asked me a question, and I don't remember exactly what he asked me this time, but he asked me a question, and I didn't know the answer. And he got mad at me. He actually got mad at me, and I had no idea why he was taking a little tantrum back. I mean, it does happen, he's a but I couldn't figure out why he was upset. And it made me confused. But at the red light, I just asked him. I go, Alex, why are you so mad? Turns out the reason why he was mad is because when he spoke with Alexa, which is an artificial intelligence machine that I have a few of them at my house, when there was no answer that could be provided, there were suggestions that were provided. And he was mad at me for not giving suggestions. Imagine. So, with the onset of AI, that we're all going to be communicating with very often, I think, because they can be helpful, we have to understand that there's going to be limitations. And I implore you all that as we adopt AI, and I believe that we will fully, we have to learn empathy and compassion and keep that in mind so that we're more patient, because I think that will change how we communicate. We're going to be used to communicating a lot with our AIs. Even now in the morning as I'm getting ready, I ask for like the weather, the time, or whatever it is that I'm asking for, and I have those answers. If I asked a person that, maybe they won't have that bias, or they won't get upset if you don't give these suggestions and the answer. But we have to remember that this is something that is coming. We have to understand that communication will be vital, and we have to maybe alter how we communicate a little bit with the concept of adoption of AI and VR. Do we have any questions? I knew you would.
Maybe it's more of a comment, but also maybe you can comment on my comment. I was really intrigued what you showed at the beginning, the facial recognition amongst kids and their parents. In my TEDx talk, I referenced new research, very fresh research. It's evolving body of research that shows that kids as young as 2 or 3 are using tablets. And after a while, not only are they losing concentration, but they have problems recognizing facial expressions. And also they're showing less empathy. Now that to me is very worrisome. And I'm hoping that this kind of body of research increases quickly, because it needs to get to parents with warnings, because if this is what the effect on kids of looking at screens constantly, or even AR, I think we're in a bit of trouble as a society.
I hear you. I think that there is a balance, and I think it does depend on the kid. Initially I was in the same camp as you, and my child didn't touch any of my devices for a very long time. But I've come around and I now let him do that. And there's different ways for people to parent. Maybe you exchange screen time, a little bit of it, in exchange for something that's maybe more academic, or help around the house, whatever it is. But yeah, there's an exchange, and there's a balance in life. We all have to know that there's a balance in life. But I agree. Any other questions? Galina.
Hi. Thank you very much for an amazing presentation. I'm making summary right now for us online. First of all, I was shocked by that toy thing. I think this is the him to be single. This is such a solitude. It's terrible. I just cannot believe that people need these kind of things, like this kind of toys. I know, I believe they need it, but it is terrible that they need it. But what really reconciles me with this outer world and future and everything is that according to the history, if you see that human nature is such a thing that each movement always have an anti-movement, counter. So society always has group of people like meat, for example. We started to eat meat, we are eating meat for a long time, but then there appeared these vegetarians and they're growing. It's like counter, they go other way. Now about devices. They are like capturing our life, but there is already movement of people who try to avoid, who speak about detoxification, and we dream about it sometimes. When there was that question today, what would you like to lose, your finger or your phone? I would like to lose my phone because I want to feel my integrity all my life. So I believe that there will be counter movement against all this stuff.
It's possible, but I'm thinking that with the investments of magically, just Google venture-backed, and very large corporations all around the world who are investing in this, I think, like I initially explained, everything's about balance. And it will be up to individuals to figure out what their addiction levels are, when to remove them from their lives or not. But actually, fundamentally, I disagree. And fundamentally, I disagree because if I look through evolution, we started with body language, and then we created language, right, as we evolved, and then after language, we've created text, and after text, now like there's video, there's different ways of communicating. And I think once we experience the immersiveness of VR, and even coupled with AI, we won't necessarily want to give it up so soon. So maybe it's a question of just a wearable, and you access things through a wearable that you can simply remove when you want to. Maybe that's the balance. I don't really know. I'm not there yet. No one's there yet. But it's an interesting way to consider it. And also, just if we look from the beginning of the video, and then back to the Stanford study that was done with the third arm, maybe we'll discover, with the onset of using more of this tech, that we have more skill sets that we don't know about. And if we can develop that, it might be more meaningful to us than even a peer-to-peer conversation that we have right now. We don't know. And that potential is really intriguing. We have two, I'll get to yours.
What we see with current day AI is they'll do a bunch of expert things and people develop confidence in them, and then it'll make some mistake that no human would ever make. Just some crazy thing out of the blue. I wonder if we start depending on these machines emotionally, if they may not be consoling, friendly, we start becoming attached to them, and suddenly they make a mistake that no human would ever make.
Yeah, this is a
And,
big deal.
well, you know, I had a bad breakup with a cell phone once, but,
Her all over again.
you know, they could hurt people pretty badly if they're not careful.
Yeah. Microsoft and all these other companies are creating, like, have you seen Pepper, the small robot? That follows her. So a lot of people are really interested in helping the elderly cope with aging. And so yes, that will become an issue, I'm certain. But I'm also hoping that as this is developed, that there will be laws that are developed to be able to regulate that, so that there are no issues that are mistakenly negatively affecting the user of the AI.
But what would such a law even look like?
I don't
You
know.
have to be
I'm not a
nice.
lawmaker, I'm just- but I know that there's actually a forum. There's a group. I think Vive and Oculus have just signed on to create kind of like a panel, and you have to pass certain regulations. So maybe that's the beginning of it. I don't know. Laws seems to be a little too slow to catch up. So the tech industry is disrupting, and someone has to take control of that. I agree. Regulation. Yes.
It's really cool. Thank you so much. And I was really inspired with the beginning, with the face recognition also. This is just amazing. And it's really interesting as far as I see that you are like co-founder of your own company, as I understand. Maybe you can share like a mission. Like what are you, like why and what are you really doing? I mean, in the bigger perception for the future, how you can describe it?
I think that every single company will soon adopt VR and AI. I don't think it'll be possible, unless you're a mom and pop shop, to have a company without VR and AI. It's really just a visionary kind of purpose for it. You know, like CloudHQ, I'm only one of three co-founders, and Blaj Lubitschev will be coming up later to pitch CloudHQ as part of the startup pitches. And you'll see what he does is, with CloudHQ, is we connect people, regardless of where they are around the world, regardless of what app they want to use. So keeping that in mind, we're connecting people, especially with the VR desktop. Play with that in your head and see where it might bring you, because that's what's intriguing to me. We can talk about that more offline. Thank you. Great question. Comments?
I think I will take this as a last comment as your sugar, and take this as a last comment.
Excellent presentation. Actually, it's not it's a question. Is it tested the gate box with the psychiatrist if it's going to help Alzheimer or severe depressed people with their loneliness and stuff like that? Is it tested by did you try to go to psychiatrist to try it on other patients or something? Because it can help, I think, with the Alzheimer when they wake up. They can repeat their names and stuff like that, or they're very depressed and taking so much antidepressants and stuff like that. It's a really good innovation.
Yeah, it is. And actually, what I'd like to say is that they were really profitable already. That's a startup that we saw. Gatebox is a startup company. They launched that, I believe it was only 4 months ago, and they've sold out in Japan. I've ordered one and I can't get one yet in the United States. It's all across China. I mean, I don't know if it's tested, and I don't know if maybe if somebody is seeing this presentation right now and they're in psychology, it'd be great if they were to do a study on that, just if it does help.
It should. It should.
It actually should.
It might help
Yeah.
when they wake up in the morning or in the middle of the day. They can repeat their names. They can.
And ask them
I
questions,
think it should
remind
have.
them about medication. In fact, a friend of mine who went to Stanford is thinking about ways to wake up Alexas in the house, because maybe if you want to check on your parents and your parents have Alexas, you know, one in each room maybe, you could wake it up and say, hey, are you doing okay? Or maybe it was just a message from Alexa saying, hey, your daughter is trying to reach you, can you call her back? This is her phone number. Or maybe would you